and welcome to Session 2 of the National Black Feminist Book Group. My name is Michelle Odom, and I am one of the co-hosts along with Randy Henderson. This session runs from August 19th until October 14th, 2014, and we are reading Alice Walker's book, We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For, Inner Light in a Time of Darkness, Meditation. Our book group meets each Tuesday evening from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Google Plus Hangouts on Air platform. You can find the National Black Feminist Book Group on Google, YouTube, and Facebook. Please feel free to join us in reading our story together. Tonight's meeting is focused on the introduction in Chapter 1, Three Fates of Our Selection. We are the ones.
Okay, Chapter 1, Graduation Address at Agnes Scott College, year 2000. Chapter 1 begins with Mrs. Walker describing her attendance at the live birth of a Native American child whose family had befriended her. She had always wanted to watch where babies came from since she was a child. This was her opportunity, and she was excited. She was invited by her friend, who was a midwife, to be there at 4 a.m. in the morning, and she felt that this was the way it should be when a new person enters the world. She described hearing the cries of the mother before she entered the room and the gathering of friends of the young mother inside the living room. She mentioned that we do not hear this. So well hidden has the act of birth become. This resonated in me on several levels. We also hide death through the technology of our war machines. Death is no longer hand-to-hand combat, but a push of a button that will drop bombs that are capable of killing millions. We also hide death in the institution of nursing homes. No longer does mom or grandmother transfer her energies in the comfort of her home, surrounded by her belongings and loved ones. We now wither away, engulfed in the fog of drugs and surrounded by white-coated strangers. Question number 1, what would be the impact of our society if 90% of births were performed by midwives and witnessed by neighbors, families, and friends? Who wants to handle that one?
Ooh.
Handle it.
Well, first we have to get over our sanitization of the process. But when I was reading, and it struck me, she said she'd always wanted to know where babies came from. Well, I'm sure people, when you were small, maybe your parents told you, okay, well, babies came from, I don't know, the Cabbage Patch or something. You've heard somebody say that before.
Right. Yes.
Well, actually, then you get about the actual physicality, the biological process of the birthing, unless you had somebody in your home who was pregnant, and then you got to ask questions, and maybe you saw something. But it's always, oh, that's their problem, or when it's, and I think it's kind of the predicament of being a woman that, like, I guess like having menses, being pregnant is also, it's kind of a stigma here in a westernized civilization. That's your problem. Just have the baby, and then we'll celebrate it when it gets here. But as you go,
as long as you don't breastfeed in public.
Right, don't breastfeed in public. Okay, we don't want to know about the rest of how you take care of your kid. Just make sure he doesn't bother us. And so I think indigenous population, cultures, probably they have their finger on the pulse of staying close to nature, what's natural in the earth and everything. I think Alice Walker is talking about here in this chapter, and probably in a lot of her interviews, about bringing us together and really experiencing our humanity. And I think birth and death is a real part of that, and maybe it would just stop a lot of this craziness and insanity, expressions of insanity, like you said, Michelle, that are going on all around us.
Well, I have never seen a baby born. I'm at my girlfriend's house. She said, "Lucky you." I have one son who is almost 30 years old now, and uh, I can barely even remember that experience. My mother, though, was in the delivery room with me, and she was so excited because she had 4 children, but she was like, "Oh, this is the first time I'm getting to see a baby born." So I don't know. I think I'm a very human person, Georgette, even though I have not seen that experience. But in terms of Joel's question, and I like that he also brought in the aspect of death as a real part of our human experience. But in terms of his question of would it help things? I do. Yes, my answer is yes. I do think that it would help a lot of people to have a greater appreciation for the real miracle of birth, and maybe lead some people to hesitate about taking life so easily and quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else on that one?
I agree. I think that because we are so on automatic pilot, I think that it takes away from our humanity. And I know for me that I consciously have to get to the present moment. 90% of the time I'm not in the present moment. So anything that'll help me feel more connected to the earth, more grounded, I think that's a good thing, and it makes me feel more like I'm a part of the circle of life as opposed to I'm going from task to task to task to task to task, because that detaches me from other humans. So I like that. I like the idea. I would love to, and I was talking to someone, a Jewish friend of mine, and she was saying how she had the honor of somebody had died on the subway, and she had the honor of sitting with the person until their family could get there. And she said that that made her feel now that she had planned to be cremated. And she said she's not going to do that. She wants people to sit with her body and to wash her feet. She wants people who loved her to wash her feet after she's gone, just to make peace with her transition. And I just thought that was such a beautiful story. So I think it changes the way I view death. My whole thing was I just didn't want any part of it. Now it's like it might be a little something where I can take a moment and pause when people are at that stage in their life or at the end of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
have you ever seen a baby born?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I would love to see, on TV and stuff like that, but in actuality, no. And it's so mysterious. It's like all of a sudden you see somebody and they back into the room with their mother.
Right.
I don't know if I need to see a baby born though. I don't know if I need to see that.
Isn't this?
Oh, I'm at my girlfriend's house. She said, "No, if you don't have to see a baby born, don't do it. Just accept the miracle of life."
Yeah, I'll need to see that.
Oh, hi, Clynthia, you're back. Great. It looks like you're frozen, though. And it looks like Desiree is frozen. No, Desiree's just muted. Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that question about how it might change things if we all were involved in the birthing process or knew more about it?
Well, I did see a baby. I had the honor of seeing a baby born.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, my sister-in-law, Chelsea, is now in college, but it brings you closer to that child, and it definitely closer to the mother. However, I think it's good if you participate in witnessing a baby being born before you have your own. I was trying to get into the whole experience, but for me, childbirthing, I had an out-of-body experience. I was on the threshold of I think it's the closest you can get to death, literally. So for me, it just brought, oh yeah, some people think it's great. I heard women say, well, you know, it's fabulous. Well, I don't know where she was, but where I was, it was crazy. So, I'm watching Chelsea being born, I'm almost having these stomach aches along with Vera. It was also because I'm aching for her, but a lot because it was bringing back these horrifying memories. So I think it might be a little more exciting if you haven't had any children yet. It's almost like a whole science thing, opposed to when you've had a child and you're like, oh, girl, I'm trying to rub her head. At the same time your stomach's hurting. Like I remember, I thought I had put it away, but it just popped back up. But no, it was a very good experience. You feel closer to the child, and I think that's a problem. That's a big issue today. Is that many years ago you had the midwife. People were very poor. They had nothing. So if you couldn't afford to go to the hospital, even, so you have them home and everyone was around. The grandmother was there and the sister was there and the aunts. That's where it used to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for the last 20 years or 15 years, they brought back slowly the whole midwife thing. But no, that's all we used to have was a lady down the street.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you call Mamie, and Mamie would come over. And when Mamie got there, the food was getting done on the stove. The water was getting boiled at the same time. Aunts and everybody was sitting around. All the women was in there doing their thing. And the ice was flowing and everything was going. But that's the way it used to be done.
Yeah.
And families, and having less and dealing with even more oppression were closer than they are today.
That's right.
Now, I don't know how we can explain that one, but that's how it used to be. The same way with death. That's why it was called a awake, because someone used to sit in the living room, take turns.
That's why it's called what?
Awakes. You know how they have an awake, you can call them sitting ins or sitting ups or layouts. It depends on what part of the country you're from. I had an aunt who called a layout. But at any rate, years ago, your viewing was in the living room, and family members, because we didn't have a sophisticated technology we have today. A lot of folks might not have been really dead. Family members took turns sitting with the body to make sure you were really dead.
What?
My grandmother told me all about that, and because she was telling me, not my grandmother, my godmother, her first husband, how he was laid out in the living room. Now, I'm a young girl, of course, I'm sitting there. This was pretty horrifying, actually. Well, I'm glad she told me about it. You didn't go to the funeral parlor. It's in the living room, and people took turns sitting there watching the body to make sure that you were actually dead. And this went on for a few days. They had ice under you or whatever they did, but that's the way it used to be done. So you were very close to the body and the dead person. Yeah. Yeah, bro. I'm telling you, I love to listen to older people. I've always been a child to listen to older people because they have so many stories, although sometimes you're scared to death. I remember these stories.
Well, that's a new one for me.
Yeah, it was new for me, but that's the way it used to be done. You poor people. Only rich people got a chance to do all the other stuff. Taking it way back. We had the baby at home, you laid people out in the backyard, the whole 10 yards. Thank God for undertakers these days, but we'll keep it moving.
All right, let's move on, Venita. Thank you.
And you know, it really resonated in me, you know, that uh, for someone to be born back in the 1970s, early 70s, it was $2,000. Now it's over $20,000, and it was
Mm.
nothing. It was nothing meant, you know, by man that was, because I don't give people that much credit. It was just something that was a part of capitalism that happened, and these are the results. And the reason why I put that in there is that the family and the indigenous family and the community, they took ownership of that child because they saw that child being brought into the world. I believe if we see children being brought into the world, when children are leaving the world or somebody is trying to kill that child, the community will have ownership of that child and won't let that happen. The village will raise that child. And
Mm-hmm.
then I looked in and see how much our society would change if we take ownership of the birthing process as well as the death process, because the death process means that grandmother, grandfather, and mother is in the house still teaching and still being a valuable part of society and keeping that extended family versus that nuclear culture still yet flowing that we've, you know, we surrendered in our community to that lifestyle of the Western world.